to the Unleash Success podcast, where we break down the secrets of success to give you real tools and strategies that get real results. And now, here's your host, Corey Corpodian.
Guys, real quick, I just want to invite you to a free giveaway worth $185. We are giving away the iconic canvas art, the Success Iceberg, where it shows all these things that you have to do underneath the water in order to achieve success, which is just the tip of the iceberg. To enter into this free giveaway, we are giving away one piece of art worth $185. All you got to do is click on the link in the show notes and you can enter. There's a lot of different ways to enter, so be sure to check the link in the show notes for your chance to win this iconic piece of art. You won't want to miss it. It looks great in your office. It looks great in your hallway, wherever you want to put it. It is an absolute awesome motivation reminder and one gift that I want to give one of you guys for listening to Unleash Success. All right, welcome back to Unleash Success. This is Corey Corpodian. Today we're going to be breaking down the secrets of success to give you some real tools and strategies that get you real results. Our guest today is Adam Mendler, the CEO of Veloz Group. They have 2 online businesses and a consulting business doing over 7 figures every year. He is actually also a writer for Forbes and contributor to Inc. and Thrive, and a true serial entrepreneur. We're going to be breaking down the steps of what it takes to make you an entrepreneur as well. Adam, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for being here. This is awesome. I'm really excited to spend however long you want to be here for. So let's dive right in.
Awesome, man. So you started Veloz Group in 2012. Give us a little bit of your background and how you got into entrepreneurship.
Sure. So I always say I'm really an accidental entrepreneur. I wasn't born to be an entrepreneur. It wasn't something that I ever really aspired to do. When I was a kid, I always wanted to run a baseball team. That was my dream. Maybe someday I still will, but that's always been what I wanted to do. And I really stumbled into entrepreneurship. I was in my late 20s, and I had worked for 4 different really, really large companies, 2 in the financial world, 2 in the entertainment world. And I felt like it was the right time in my life to try something a little bit different. And I felt like if there was ever a moment to do something entrepreneurial, it was at that point in time. My energy was never going to be higher. My expenses were never going to be lower. I was really at a point in my career where I felt like if there was the right time to take the risk, it was then. And I just went and did it and figured if things don't work out, what's the worst thing that happens? I just jump back into the corporate world.
Or go buy a baseball team, right? And I know you're an Angels fan.
I love the Angels. Big win last night. Huge win. Just barely above 500, but feeling good, feeling like we've got the pieces. We just need a healthy team, a couple additions to the bullpen, and the offense to start hitting again.
Awesome. So how old were you when you decided to make this transition?
I was 28.
28, okay. Yeah. And so, a lot of people have that same kind of desire.
Hopefully I looked around the same. But
yeah, looking young, man, definitely. But, even at 28 years old, a lot of people are trying to dive into their career, and they've got this desire where they want to, do something, but very few people actually take that risk. And because it is a big risk, I guess you could always say you could go back, but there's a lot of fear that comes along with that. How did you handle that?
Yeah, I've never really been afraid of failure because I've always had the view that what's the worst thing that happens if you fail? You just get up and move on. You fail by not trying. Every shot you don't take is a shot that you miss. So that's always been my philosophy, and I've never been afraid. So, starting a new business, my fear wasn't that, it would fail, and then what would I do? How would I show my face? I never felt that way. I definitely felt that, it could work, it could not work, but if it doesn't work, who really cares? I think you have to have a certain sense of comfort in your own skin and a feeling that if things don't go well, big deal.
I love that mentality and that kind of belief, because fear is such an interesting emotion. I always talk about fear, try to be afraid of not accomplishing the goals as opposed to afraid of what would happen if you fail. But that's a great outlook. And, what happens though if you do fail? Have you ever, as you're starting these businesses?
I've never failed in anything before in my life.
Oh my
God.
Ever.
No, I succeed every single day. Donald Trump and I, neither of us have ever failed at anything. I know this isn't supposed to be a political show, but I had to kind of throw that in.
No worries.
But no, I mean, a person who I really look up to tremendously, I don't know if your audience is familiar with the former mayor of Los Angeles, Richard Riordan. He was the mayor of LA for 2 terms. He was actually a professor of mine when I was getting my MBA. Great guy, phenomenal guy, consider him a friend. And he has a great line. He says, "Only a mediocre person never makes a mistake." And that's one of my favorite lines. And I truly believe if you're not failing, you're not trying. I fail every single day. There's not a day that goes by that I don't fail. And I can cite an example literally every day. Today, we were supposed to meet here, and I got here late. I failed. So, there's literally not a day in which failure doesn't exist. The only time failure doesn't exist is when you're too conservative and too afraid to take chances. So don't be afraid to take a chance, and remember that line. Only a mediocre person never makes a mistake. You find me someone who's never failed, and what's interesting about them, what's successful about them. All of our most successful people in every industry, successful entrepreneurs, successful business leaders, successful athletes, successful entertainers, actors, musicians, artists, everyone's failed, and everyone's failed big. Some of our most prominent people have failed up. So don't be afraid to fail. Failure can be a good thing, especially if you have the view that failure is a learning experience, especially if you really sit down and analyze why you failed, what happened, what went wrong, and really break it down and internalize it, and don't repeat the same mistakes.
I love that. I always look at failure as a learning experience, and sometimes even the most painful learning experiences are the one that I get the most growth out of, because I really go back into it. You think about it, you reevaluate what you're doing.
To that end, I always say, very rarely does a team stay up all night breaking down tape when they win. That's not what happens. So it's when you lose that it's those crushing defeats that don't allow you to sleep and force you to really figure out what went wrong. How can we do better the next time? How can we avoid this outcome happening again? When you win, everything was great. Everything went really, really well, and you're out partying. You're not in the film room doing the hard work, figuring out how to get better. The great ones are, Kobe did, Mike Trout does, but I think the natural tendency is to be harder on yourself when things don't go right than when they do.
Yeah, absolutely. For entrepreneurship, I wanted to ask you what does entrepreneurship mean to you?
It means not having a paycheck for one. It means not having stability for two. So entrepreneurship, it's interesting. When I was in the corporate world, the things that I would worry about every day and the things that I would complain about to my friends and to my family were very different than the things that I worry about and have been worrying about as an entrepreneur. When you have a job, what do you think about? And what concerns you? Am I happy? Am I fulfilled? Am I reaching my potential? Am I making the most of my time? How is my career trajectory? You're thinking about different political things within the organization. These are the things that you're worrying about. When you're an entrepreneur, you're worrying about, am I going to survive? Is my company going to survive? Am I going to make payroll? Am I going to be able to pay my rent? How am I going to sustain this business so that I don't have to go back and get a job?
So with all those kind of like negative possibilities or fears of like, what am I going to do if I can't pay everybody type of thing? what attracted you to entrepreneurship then?
Wow, great question. Well, I think it was the answer to those questions that I asked myself when I was in corporate America, really trying to figure out how can I make the most of my potential. I kind of kicked this off by saying that I don't believe I was born to be an entrepreneur. I truly believe that there are people who are true entrepreneurs, real entrepreneurs. I heard this great line from Tony Robbins. I was at a buddy of mine invited me to an event in Vegas that Tony Robbins did, and a couple of years ago. And one of the things that I remembered from it was Tony Robbins had this great line. He said, there are three kinds of people in business, and he broke it down, and I thought it was really interesting. There are entrepreneurs. And what is an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur is someone who can really make money out of nothing, can see opportunity, and it doesn't matter what they're in. They could be, in the dental field. They could be doing podcasts. They could be selling chairs. They could be selling cigars. They could be literally doing anything, and they'll figure out selling lemonade, and they'll figure out how to make a buck. That's an entrepreneur. There are artists, and an artist is someone who has a skill. And it could be an artist, literally, someone who can paint pictures, or it could be, Greg Maddox was an artist. You could be, a great pitcher. You could be a great salesperson, and that's your art. Your art can be the art of interacting with people. Howard Stern is an artist.
Yeah.
And then there are managers. There are people who love the process of managing and organizing and Tony Robbins' point was to try to figure out, well, who are you? How do you fit in? And to surround yourself with other people who can complement you rather than surrounding yourself with people who have that same skill set. My brother, who I started these businesses with, he really is a true entrepreneur. He had these ideas. He has an idea a minute. He's really the guy who, has that true entrepreneurial gene. To me, it was really a matter of being in corporate America and asking myself, is there a way, is there an environment, is there something I could be doing that will enable me to better reach my potential, to make more of an impact, to just do more. And that's what drove me here.
Yeah, so that's what kind of was driving you, is your passion to kind of make more of an impact in the world. Is that like why you ended up jumping into entrepreneurship?
Make more of an impact, period.
Awesome. And I know we said you contribute to Forbes and do some articles for them, and I've read plenty of them that are
glad someone does.
Yeah. Definitely inspiring, and always good to remind yourself too with that kind of information. So definitely impacting the world. And it's interesting because I've heard that from Tony Robbins before too, and some other people. And there are times where I put on kind of like the entrepreneur hat, where I'll do anything to make $1. But at the end of the day, similar to you, I'm more of an artist, you could say. Like, I really want to create things. And while I say I'll do anything to make $1, that's not really true. It's not like I'm going to go, poison the oceans to make money or something like that.
Sure.
I want to do it in a positive, impactful way.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
Those are all great things. And creating a team, though, knowing your brother is the entrepreneur there.
Sure.
It's so crucial. So I want to get into your businesses as well.
Sure.
You've got a online chair and furniture business, as well as a e-commerce cigar company. How did you find these ideas? How did you create these businesses?
So first thing, what do you think of the chair you're sitting in? It's
incredibly comfortable.
www.beverlyhillschairs.com. A quick plug over now.
Perfect. No, hey, actually, I mean, a chair, especially if you're working at a desk all the time, I mean, it's something you've got to have a lot of support for. I know when I bought a desk chair, it was a couple of years ago, but I paid like $50 extra for more lumbar support, so because I was like, I don't want the crappy chair that's going to make my back hurt after 3 hours, because if you got to spend 8 hours sitting there working. you're not going to be able to do a whole lot.
Sure. You're a workout guy. You're into health and nutrition and fitness. And, we all spend so much time thinking about how do we stay fit? How do we stay healthy? How do we take care of our bodies, our backs, our health, our mental health? So this is one piece of it.
So that was kind of was that the inspiration?
No, not at all. No, truly the inspiration. My brother had the idea. My brother Jordan, who again really has that entrepreneurial gene, he had the idea for it. So he kind of stumbled into it, started buying and selling these out of his apartment. I got involved and we turned it into a real business, and got a warehouse, built out a lot of infrastructure, and have really scaled the business to the point where we're now the leading sellers in the country of refurbished Herman Miller chairs. So our niche for Beverly Hills Chairs is there's a chair called the Herman Miller Aeron chair. It's the chair that you and I are both sitting on. This chair is the best-selling chair ever made, believe it or not.
Wow.
It's the number one selling office product, actually, office furniture product of all time. And it remains the number one selling office chair in the marketplace today. And each one of these chairs costs about $1,200 brand new, which is a lot.
Yeah, no, that's a lot.
Yeah, so
my chair that I was talking about, $50 more, might have been $120.
Sure. So $1,200 is a big investment, especially if you're a small to medium-sized business and you're buying 10 of them or 20 of them, or if you're buying one for your home office. So our niche really is we cater to small to medium-sized businesses. We sell refurbished Herman Miller Aeron chairs and other refurbished high-end chairs. So in addition to the Aeron, there are other chairs that are like the Mira chair, which is the one that I have at my desk. There are lots of chairs that are really, really popular, really in demand, really expensive, and we sell them at about 50% off retail by buying them, getting them to our warehouse, refurbishing them so they look like they're in brand new condition. Functionally, they're like in brand new condition. Aesthetically, they're like in brand new condition. When you turn them over to the customer, they think they're essentially getting a brand new chair, even though we're completely transparent about them being refurbished. Mm-hmm. We warranty them, and it's really a solution for any company that wants really, really high-end office furniture but wants to buy it affordably, is on a budget, isn't, like we're not selling to Disney or to Google. We're not selling to companies that are buying in the thousands and thousands and that have such purchasing power that that they don't need our discount. We're selling to companies that are buying one or buying 50 or buying 100. Some are even buying hundreds from us, where, a lot of our customers are growing tech companies where, they need 20. And then the next thing you know, they're growing and they need another 20 and they need another 40 and another 50. And that's been our first business, and it's a great business. And, we're really proud of what we've built and what we continue to do and grow. And, it's a lot of fun being able to provide a real service and a real solution to the marketplace.
So, I'm heavily, I love entrepreneurship and the ideas of how to build a business and, eventually scale it up. And, different people have different kind of stages of business.
Sure.
You go from a startup and then you're out of the startup phase, maybe you're in a growth phase. What do you see as kind of like the hardest phase of business to get to, and then eventually you're scaling? And what kind of problems do you see that arise in that stage?
Sure. So great question, tremendous question. And I'm actually in a group. So I got my MBA at UCLA. For those listeners out there who don't like UCLA because you went to USC. I'm actually also a Trojan. I did my undergrad at USC, so fight on.
That was one of the craziest things too. I remember when we met, because we met the USC Global Innovation Business Conference, and I was doing the Millennial Innovation Panelist, and you were hosting it, and you were talking about USC and UCLA. I mean, talk about a house divided just with you right there.
Person divided, switch hitter, bat lefty, bat righty. But, if Mickey Mantle could do it, I could do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think that wherever you go to school, it's what you take from it and apply from it, definitely. Sure. But that is an interesting combination for sure.
Yeah, but it's great. And I guess back to your question. So I'm in a group of entrepreneurs who we all got our MBAs from UCLA, and we meet once a month, and it's kind of modeled after Vistage, and we get together and we spend about half a day at a different person's office or home, and it's around processing different issues that our businesses are facing. And I've been in this group now for several years. I was one of the founding members of the group, and one of the topics that is ever present is scaling up. And one of the questions really is, can your business scale up? What does scaling up mean? Scaling up means different things to different people, to different companies. Do you want a business that scales up? And one of the really interesting things is a lot of people in the group are really happy not scaling up and are really happy running lifestyle businesses. And their aspiration really is to build a lifestyle business. And scaling up not only is scary, but is something that isn't really appealing because it comes with issues and problems and a different set of responsibilities. Whereas other people in the group are focused on building businesses that can scale. With our businesses, I think there's an open question as to how much they can scale. So, for example, our 3 different companies, I don't think that any of them are ever going to really scale to the point that a true, if you read the book Scaling Up, or if you look in the business dictionary, the entrepreneurship dictionary for how a company would be defined as a business that scales, I don't know that any of these 3 businesses will ever get to that point. Like, these businesses are not going to IPO, but
right.
But they're nice lifestyle businesses, and more importantly, they're businesses that make a real contribution. They're businesses that solve a real problem in the marketplace.
So when you talk about scaling and evaluating whether you can scale, can you go into maybe some businesses that, in your guys' group, or that you see that is a scalable business? I mean, talking about like an IPO, like for instance, Facebook went IPO,
sure.
It's scale to billions of people
sure.
worldwide.
Sure.
That's obviously the most scale, but
sure.
even just getting from, 1 customer to 100 customers
sure.
to 1,000 is a big difference. And how do you do that? How do you manage that process?
Sure. So yeah, our business has definitely scaled quite a bit from the time we started until where we are right now. To go from, my brother selling these chairs out of his apartment to selling these chairs all over the world, and servicing companies literally all over America, all 50 states. Some of our biggest and best customers are in, pockets of the country that are very, very far from Los Angeles, far from Westwood. So getting to that point requires a lot of different things, and I'm happy to really go into it with you if you're interested. But if I had to break it down to kind of one thing that's most important, and it's going to sound cliche because it is cliche, but I believe it with all of my heart. I've written a lot of articles about it. The number one most important thing, not only to scaling a business, but to building a business and to having a business, is having customers, understanding your customers, building a business around customers, catering to your customers. You need to have a not only a completely customer-centric business, but a completely customer-centric mindset. Everything around your business has to be focused on your customers. Your customers have to love your product. They have to love what you're doing. You have to really, really give your customers something that they love and enjoy and want. There are obviously a lot of other things that go into it, but to me, that's far and away the most important thing. And without that, I think it's hard to scale.
Yeah.
It's probably hard to be in business.
Definitely. And it's funny, but sometimes you have to say that, every business has to have customers.
Right.
Without that, you can't sell products.
Correct.
It's obvious, but at the same time, people kind of forget that when they're looking to even scale.
You can't, and not to cut you off, but like, it's so important. You can't lose sight of it. I don't know how much your listeners know about your background, but being an orthodontist, I'm sure you tell your patients, brush your teeth every day. And like, you're supposed to brush your teeth every day, twice a day, 3 times, how many times?
It depends, but usually we say at least twice a day.
At least twice, okay.
Yeah.
You're a fitness guy, like do push-ups every day or go for a walk or whatever level you're at. As an entrepreneur, as a business executive, as a leader, you need to have your customers in mind every day. You can't wake up in the morning and not be thinking about your customers. It's all about your customers. Customers. If you don't have a customer-centric approach to business, your business is not going to scale.
How do you keep them in mind all the time? Do you have a strategy they use or implement every day?
We talk to them. I mean, we're constantly talking to them. We're thinking about them. We're interacting with them. We're engaging with them. And even on days that I myself am not talking to customers, because I am candidly a little bit removed from kind of interfacing with customers on a day-to-day level. I do interface with customers when it's helpful, but that isn't sort of my day-to-day responsibility. But I'm interfacing with my team, and I'm asking my team about customers and, okay, what's going on with this lead, and what's going on with that lead, and what's going on with this deal, and what is this customer saying about our product, and what are they thinking? And you have to constantly be thinking about it. Even if you yourself aren't on a daily basis communicating with customers, you need to communicate with your team about how your customers are interacting with your product and your business.
I want to go back to maybe even getting the first customer and how you market to these customers, and then how do you get them to then kind of really get really excited about your product to where they're going to tell other people and gain more business?
Sure. So 2 different questions. How do you get your first customer? I think that really depends on what business you're in. I think it really...
So because you're in the online retail space,
sure.
Somebody else wants to start an online store. Nowadays with Shopify, we talked about a little bit earlier before about fulfillment by Amazon, drop shipping.
Yeah.
A lot of these people are trying to create kind of an online retail store. How would you go about starting something like that in today's market, as opposed to, when you did it, or what correlates for you?
Yeah. So to me, the number one thing is paid search. That would be the number one thing I would focus on for a new business. I would focus on...
When you say paid search, you're talking about advertising for when they search something that their website comes up? So
to break it down a little bit, we'll pick let's give me a business to use as an example.
Let's do camera equipment.
Okay, great. Camera equipment. So if you go on Google and you search, let's say, Corey's Cameras, all right? So Corey's Cameras is a new business, built out a website. You want to say you put it on, Shopify. And, how do customers know that Corey's Cameras exists, right? Because if the tree falls and there's no one there to hear it, did the tree really fall?
Right.
So how do customers find out about Corey's Cameras? Well, the first place people go is Google, right? Mm-hmm. So you're going to Google something. You're probably not going to Google Corey's Cameras because no one knows what Corey's Cameras is, so they're not going to Google it.
Right.
But what is your customer going to be thinking about? Who is your customer? Who's going to be buying cameras from you?
Right.
Who are you targeting?
Say we're just doing, we got DSLR cameras or mirrorless cameras, like Sony cameras, amateur photographers type of thing. I'm creating this business up. I don't have a camera business.
So let's say you want someone who's going to search for the keywords DSLR cameras, and you want anyone who has in their mind to punch into Google DSLR cameras. that they would probably be a good customer for you.
So is this pay per click type of advertising?
So there are two kinds of ways that you show up on Google. One is SEO and the other is pay per click. SEO is a long game. And is not really something you can do overnight. Whereas pay per click is something you really can. It's quick. It's a way that you could really test your business out in a really quick, cost effective way.
So is there like a tool that I can use of how to figure out how to maximize, kind of like if I have $100 to spend on advertising to draw people to my new Shopify or retail store online? How do I figure out how to gain the most people?
Yeah, good question. In our case, we have a digital marketing guy who we use, who I would refer you to on that one.
Perfect. But that's part of building a team, right? I mean, having the right people in the right spot.
So I couldn't tell you what tool that would be, but I can tell you at a very high level that I would take that $100 and deploy it on paid search. Whether it's on Google or on Facebook would really depend on your product.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's super interesting. So that's one way.
And you could do it yourself. So part of it is if you're asking, is there a tool that you could use to really optimize it? That would be something that would probably be a better question for a true digital marketing guru. I can kind of talk digital marketing strategy at a high level, but, when you're talking about artists, that I wouldn't be the digital marketing artist. Whereas I can tell you that anyone who just kind of wants to play around with it and hack it through definitely can. And if you don't want to go out and try to find your guru to do it for you, you can certainly figure it out and throw $100 up and see what happens.
Yeah, I've actually done some, just promotional kind of social media advertising and seen some results that were horrible for some.
Okay.
I actually had an online course a while back that, made some mistakes in the advertising, but I was able to test it.
What was the online course on?
It was on dentistry and how to increase case acceptance. So
cool.
We did that course and I built this whole course out and I made a few mistakes in the language, and some of the dentists who were like interested really got turned off because of the language I used. So I switched the language in the ad itself.
Too many F-bombs.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. It was definitely that. No, I'm entrepreneurial in spirit, and a lot of doctors are more the artist type.
Yep.
And they, while they wanted to make more money, they didn't like to use business terms. It wasn't like I was like, we're going to get all these patients to pay us the most and overcharge them. I wasn't saying anything like that.
Yeah.
I was just talking about how to increase revenue and, grow your business. And they were like, well, I want to focus more on my patient. And that's actually how you do it. Just like talking about
Focus
your customer.
On your customer.
Exactly. Right. But I switched the language around, and overnight, I got way more people to even apply. I was doing free webinars and then actually even buy the course.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that was a very exciting time. I wasn't super passionate about the course itself. And so I kind of, as we took off with the podcast, that just kind of died down a little bit. But it was interesting, and it was actually very affordable. I think first couple ads, I did 2 ads for $100 and kind of looked at the results. And that was just with Facebook.
Great.
But yeah, so paid search, I definitely like that. I wanted to jump into, if you have an idea and you create a paid search and you get that one customer, how do you go from 1 to 100 then?
Sure. And what I'll tell you actually on the topic of paid search, I'm actually a really, really big believer of paid search because I see it with both of my online businesses, the positive and the negative. So for Beverly Hills Chairs, paid search is a huge part of our business. For custom tobacco, so we haven't really talked much about custom tobacco. I'll give you a little bit of an overview because I actually think that it might be something that your audience will find more interesting than ergonomic Aeron chairs, as interesting as sitting on these amazing chairs are.
As comfortable as they are, yeah.
So we have a business called Custom Tobacco, www.customtobacco.com. And you can go on to customtobacco.com and create your own fully customized private label cigar. So everything about the cigar is fully customized. The shape, the size, the blend, the wrapper, the filler, the flavor. And then you can design your own cigar band. So literally any design you want to put on the cigar band, you can slap it on the band. You want to do a cigar for a party, for a gift, birthday party, bachelor party, we do a lot of corporate events, corporate gifts, personal events, weddings, golf tournaments, charity events.
Wow.
So a lot of different applications, but to the extent that you have listeners out there who, I thought that might be something a little bit, it's a little bit more outside the box. However, one of the probably the biggest challenge with this business is, and it's something we didn't know or understand or realize when we started the business, is because cigars are tobacco, we can't do any kind of paid search. So we can't do any kind of paid advertising on Google or Facebook, and it makes it extremely difficult for us to really advertise the business in the easy, traditional, low-hanging fruit channel, which I'm a very big advocate of.
Yeah, I had no idea about that. I guess the local laws around tobacco kind of regulate that. So if you can't do any paid search, how'd you get that business off the ground? What'd you guys do?
So a lot of it was SEO has been big for us. So if you go online and you search custom cigars, customized cigars, a lot of the keywords around that will show up number one, and we have a great website and great products. Our customers, again, really, really love our products, and there's a very high level of satisfaction. So a lot of it has become through SEO, which then leads to word of mouth. And then when you have a happy customer, that leads to repeat business. And but then we've had to do other forms of marketing that aren't as easy as throwing up an AdWords campaign. So we've had to push a lot on PR. That has been big for us. We've been featured in the Daily Beast. We've been featured in Sports Illustrated. We've been featured in LA Business Journal, American Airlines Magazine.
So you guys are
Fox
did
a piece on us. Yeah.
Wow, you're some big news outlets there, which is fantastic, obviously.
So that's helped.
So the idea of customizing it, and this is all online, right?
All online, yeah.
Amazing. So did you guys...
You can call us too, and we'll, we have a sort of a free concierge service, but, again, kind of going back to customer centricity, our thought was, it's really easy. You go online, you create your own cigars, but what if someone doesn't want to do it online? What if someone isn't comfortable with technology and with using websites? What if someone would rather just pick up a phone and talk to someone and do it the old school way? So we also offer that sort of free concierge service.
That's great. Another way to just kind of service your customer. I love the service orientated and customer centric focus that you guys have, because it's obviously so important in growing a business.
Totally.
And just how much you emphasize it. So we talked a little bit about your stages of entrepreneurship and growing a business, but a lot of times people fail before they really even get started. What is something that you do on a daily basis or kind of believe that empowers you to just keep going?
You know what? I think that you just have to have a positive mindset. It's the power of positive thinking. I think that there are people out there who are highly negative, and I think there are people out there who are positive. And, you can look at something, and it's, again, very cliche, but you can look at the glass as either half full or half empty. And if you go through life looking at life and seeing the negative, you're going to be unhappy, because there's a lot to be unhappy about. There's a lot going on in society right now that can make you cry all day. There's terrible stuff going on. I know this is, again, a podcast about entrepreneurship, but if you're not torn up about what's going on the border, and children being torn from their parents, but it's terrible. It's awful. So but at the same time, you kind of, it's hard not to, stay home all day and cry. But at the same time, you need to live your life, and you need to look at the positive, and you need to power through, and you need to, kind of focus on contributing and building and growing, and using that as an example. In your business, every day there's stuff that goes on that's good, and there's stuff that goes on that's bad. And you need to focus on, solving the problems. And I always say entrepreneurship is the highest of highs, the lowest of lows. And when you're an entrepreneur, one day it feels like you're on top of the world. The next day it feels like the world is going to end. And it's your job as the leader of the company not to get too consumed in this swing of emotions. And it's not just me who feels this way. It's not just the Veloz Group. This is every entrepreneur in every business. And when you're so consumed in it, it just makes it all that much more intense. So I think that the key is to try to understand that, you play one game at a time, fight another day. Sometimes when things are really intense and really rough, sometimes you just need to take a step back, take a deep breath, go work out, go to bed early, go watch TV, do whatever you need to do, go meditate, do some yoga, whatever it is you need to do to get your mind in shape.
So much I can relate to that. And, I find that the further I get outside my comfort zone, trying new things, expanding or growing as a person and professionally in entrepreneurship, especially where there's more at risk, that the fear can it can be overwhelming and you don't even realize it. And all of a sudden you spend all day thinking about I have to do this. And then, I'm worried about doing this. You think about doing it. And then by the time the day ends, you haven't even done it yet. And I find for me anyways, it's just to keep taking action, or if I really can't get out of it, go work out, just change your entire state, change your focus, change everything that's going on in your mind. And then come back and like I said, kind of live to fight another day, go on. And yeah, it's hard to stay focused. Definitely. One thing I like what you said about the glass being half full. Recently watched this video with Gary Vaynerchuk.
Sure.
And he was talking about glass half empty. It was an empty glass, half full, half empty. Who cares? He's like, this is empty. You see this? He's like, I know exactly what I'm going to do with this. I know exactly what I'm going to do with this empty glass. And to him, everything is just an opportunity.
Sure.
It sounds like, some people try to be too realistic in their goals and aspirations, but I think realism kind of kills the dream and the motivation to do whatever it takes. So I always try to focus on a little bit more optimistic. What solution? Like you said, what solution? How can I solve this problem? As opposed to focusing on the fact that I have this problem now.
Totally.
Super, super interesting. And I'm just wondering also how.
What's the famous quote? Some men see things as they are, and ask why. I see things. You fill it in.
I can't remember.
I dream things that never were, and ask why not.
Right there you go. Yeah.
That has to be the quote that you have to live and breathe every day.
It's awesome, man. Definitely. I wanted to ask you too about your contribution as a writer to Forbes and Thrive and Inc. One, how you kind of got into that, and what that experience is like as you talk about at least one person read it, but you're definitely impacting people with these articles. How is that for you?
I love it. It's a totally different dimension. It's a element of my personality and my skill set that I haven't really tapped into since I was in college. So I love it. It's just a great way to give back and contribute. And when I initially got into it, I sort of had the opportunity to write a couple of pieces. My first piece got placed in the Huffington Post, and I think my second piece got placed in Forbes. And, I thought it would be just kind of a good way to get out there, build the brand a little bit, get my businesses, kind of in these name publications. As an entrepreneur, you're always hustling. You're always looking to get out there. Like I mentioned, we got custom tobacco in Sports Illustrated and the Daily Beast, and we're so excited. So it was like, if you have the opportunity to contribute to these different publications, yeah, absolutely, you're going to do it. But it really just kind of took off for me because I love doing it. I've gotten so into it, and it's a way for me to really share what I'm thinking and to try to talk about topics that I think are interesting to other people out there. I don't really write with any kind of agenda. It's not like I have a specific topic that I'm trying to hammer on or hone in on. Each one of these articles is really me kind of thinking about, what's something interesting, what's a perspective that I think I have, that I think I can share, that I think other people will find interesting. I've always, we talk about the importance of your customer. I've always believed that when you're speaking, when you're giving speeches, I do my fair share of public speaking. And even before I was doing public speaking, when I was, a kid, running for student body president or whatever I was doing, and you're talking to groups of people, the most important thing that you could have in mind as a speaker is it's not about what you're talking about. It's about what your audience is listening to. And it's understanding your audience, knowing your audience. And, I was talking recently to an MBA class, and I made a comment to them. I said, there's nothing I would love more than spending the next hour talking about baseball. And truly, there is nothing. Like, we could spend this whole podcast talking about baseball. I would love that. But I looked around the room and I said, there's probably like one person in here, maybe two people that would actually enjoy it. And the rest of you would be sleeping and on your phones and complaining about what's this guy doing talking about baseball. He's supposed to be talking about entrepreneurship and leadership and management and business. So a lot of it is really thinking about, well, what is the audience that I'm writing to going to be interested in? What are topics that are going to be helpful to them? And what can they take away from my pieces that they can then apply directly to their businesses, to their leadership styles? I want to help in some small way build better leaders, better managers, better entrepreneurs, better executives, better human beings. In that regard, as CEO of Veloz Group, you're obviously one of the leaders of this company. And what do you think it takes to be truly a good leader or a great leader? Wow, how much time do we have? I feel like that's a whole other podcast. Right on. Maybe one or two traits that you find are definitely something that leaders need to do. Yeah, so I think first and foremost, leaders need to connect, relate, understand, recognize that leadership isn't about you, it's about the people you lead. Leadership is truly about a vision. Leadership is about a shared goal. It's about something bigger than yourself, bigger than anything you alone can do. So to me, if you sort of want two pieces to focus on, one piece is really understanding who it is you're leading, who it is that's around you, making them better, improving them, making them happy, making them fulfilled, and taking them and their skills to that next level. And then number two is really in a collaborative way, doing what you're really good at, and then taking all these pieces around you and in a collaborative fashion, building something big and building something meaningful and making a real substantial, tangible contribution that, again, exceeds the individual pieces. And if I just did something by myself and this person did something by himself or herself, it would pale in comparison to what we can all do to working together. Yeah, absolutely. And I see a correlation between being a leader and bringing your team up to their highest potential and make sure you're serving them, and also to your attitude towards your customers. How can you serve them better to make them have the best experience? Very interesting just how much you actually focus on other people. And I think that's also just the sign of a true leader. I appreciate that. Thank you. Going back to entrepreneurship and just how to impact people, you're impacting people as CEO, and as you're writing and speaking. What do you see in your experience are some common mistakes that younger entrepreneurs make in their startup and growth phase of business? So great question. I think one very, very common mistake, and it's a mistake that I made very early on, that I continue to make, but I think it's probably the hardest thing for entrepreneurs, if not one of the hardest things for entrepreneurs, is to stay focused. And I've always been an extremely focused person. And even for me, as someone who's naturally focused, it's extremely hard to stay focused as an entrepreneur. And I can only imagine how hard it is for entrepreneurs who aren't naturally focused. So I think that it's something that we all struggle with because there's a limited amount of time in the day and there's limitless amount to do. And, in addition to staying focused, I think another struggle is prioritization. I don't want to say they're one and the same, but they're related. They're in the same family. So I think that it's very easy to go through an entire day, an entire week and month, maybe even year, and turn around and say, how did I spend my time? I wish I would have spent my time better on this instead of that. And I think that if entrepreneurs could take a step back and really better focus and better prioritize, they would avoid a lot of the mistakes that inevitably come up over the course of a business's life cycle.
Yeah, it's so true too. I just think about it, you say you're a naturally focused person, and some people might say that about me, that I'm able to intensely focus on one thing at a time, and I've done that throughout my life. And yet at the same time, I feel like I struggle with it, and I'm struggling to stay focused when there's so much to do. And I think it is just a battle that we all have, acknowledging that, and then realizing when you are struggling to focus, going to, and I know they are similar, but I do consider them different things, but going to your priorities, what is most important? Because at the end of the day, we only do have so much time. And once it's gone, it's gone. We've spent that, and now we can't get it back. We can only change what we're doing in the future.
Sure.
There are certain things that I do, on a daily or weekly basis. Sometimes I'll write, I call it a power action list. I used to be like a to-do list, but that just got too long, boring, and mundane. So my power action list is, anywhere from, 1 to 5 things max, usually 3, where if I do that today or this week, that gets me much further ahead in my overall goals. And at the end of a month or a year, I look back and say, okay, I spent my time wisely. Is anything you do in kind of comparison to stay focused?
Yeah. So, I mean, my list is not as powerful as yours. I probably can't lift as much as you.
I'm not the word power.
I'm not the same power. I mean, I can't bench as much as you can. So that's why I don't think it's fair for me to use the word power. I've never really been much of a power lifter. I've always kind of been, had never really been my thing. More like a lean machine, if that.
I like it.
Maybe. I don't know. My friends who've worked out with me, they know I'm not much of a power lifter. So, I couldn't even tell you what my bench was back in its peak. But anyway, what do I do every day? I use Google Calendars. I'm a big fan of the Google Suite. I know that your listeners might be tuning in hoping for me to throw out some kind of, esoteric, obscure software that I use that helps me optimize my life. But believe it or not, I love the Google Suite. I just find that, Google Docs and Gmail and Google Calendar makes life easy. You sort of don't need to reinvent the wheel when they've already reinvented it for you. So I go on my Google Calendar, and every day I have a list of what I need to get done. So it's a daily to-do list. And there's no way I do it every day. It's impossible because every day, today I probably have 12 things on the list. So there's no way I'm going to get it all done. But I look through it and, I'll pick out the ones that are the most important and focus on those, as well as the ones that I know I can just hammer out and hammer those out. Whatever I don't get done is then pushed off to the next day. So that's my way of doing it. There may be better ways of doing it, but
everybody's got their own way. But actually, the Google Calendar thing is something that has been mentioned a few times on this podcast.
Really? Okay.
Oh yeah, and it's just an excellent way to kind of manage your time and keep you focused on the task at hand. And something that I personally have been using more often, actually, since we started the podcast.
Interesting.
Because I never wanted the calendar. I just never really looked at it, never used it. And even though it's been around for years, but in the last 9-12 months, I've been using it a lot more. Yeah.
I've been living and breathing my Google Calendar probably since we started this business. And, to the point where recently forget where I was, but I saw someone was giving out calendars, and I was like, people actually still have physical calendars? Like, why wouldn't everyone just use Google Calendar?
Yeah, it's funny because I guess I don't know, never really thought I needed to use it, but there are days that literally I'll wake up and not really sure where I need to go unless I check the calendar now. Where like now I put it away and I don't have to remember everything that I'm doing exactly. And I even do it for if I'm like a social event or a vacation, I'll just put it in there, block it out. So that way when I'm looking at the schedule, because it's just so hard to manage everything. Yeah. And when you can also combine that with, because you can combine multiple different schedules into there to coordinate. I like that feature as well.
Totally.
So, super awesome stuff, man. I'm really enjoying this. And going back to just the common mistakes that some entrepreneurs make, focus and priorities, that was very helpful. So I appreciate that.
This is amazing now.
Yeah. I look at entrepreneurs and, think about what is something that they can do. I believe in kind of the 80-20 principle where the way I use it is that 80% of our results come from 20% of our actions. So I'm just wondering what kind of advice you have for entrepreneurs who are starting their business, getting things rolling. What's some actions they can take to accelerate the speed of their business growth?
Wow, that's a good one. Again, this is going to sound very basic, but I believe it with every facet of my being. I think entrepreneurs need to avoid getting in their own way. I think that, it's important not to overthink things. It's important to, I'm going to hammer in on the theme of focus. It's important to stay focused on what it is you want to achieve, set a roadmap, stay disciplined to it, and execute. And too often, we're our own worst enemy. And to the extent that entrepreneurs can avoid shooting themselves in the foot, that's my best advice in terms of acceleration. Because at the end of the day, I'm a very, very big believer that everyone out there, every person in the world has something that they're truly exceptional at. I think that we each have, I think we're all, I wrote an article about this, and I think that we're all really bad at most things. I know I personally am bad at most things. I'm bad at way too many things to list. Just a lot of really, really deep deficiencies. I think we're all good.
We all have them.
We all do. Yeah, everyone does. And I think we're all good at a few things, and we all have that one thing that we're truly exceptional at. And I think that too often, we get in our own way, and we don't just focus on, all right, what is it that we're really, really good at, and allow ourselves to do it and to thrive. Another tip I can give you is surround yourself with good people. If you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to figure out how can I accelerate my business, one way you could do it is by bringing people aboard the train who can help you get there, because no one can do things alone. Show me a business that was built alone. I don't think there's one that exists. So was the Garden of Eden built alone? I don't know, maybe that one, but Olive Garden wasn't built alone. So any business requires a really, really good team. So the earlier in the process you can get really good people around you who complement your skill set, who complement that one thing that you do really, really well, I think the more quickly your business can really accelerate.
That's great. Just talking about people get in their own way. I'm also a big believer that it's kind of you versus you. And I'm always amazed at how the mind works, because I find that we put limits on ourselves without ever anybody else kind of saying, no, you can't do that. I mean, sure, there are limits that maybe other people we allow to put on us, but we put limits on ourselves of what we are even capable of doing.
Sure.
And sometimes I'll sit back and I'll say something where it says, I can't really do that. Well, that's bullshit.
Right. Why not?
Yeah. And I'll catch myself. And I'm just amazed why the mind thinks like that. It's really, I believe, kind of a defensive mechanism to protect us from harm, to protect us from, danger and like death, basically, as far as like an evolutionary perspective, as the extreme, right? Like, don't jump off the cliff because you'll die. That's a good thing. But like, why can't I jump off the cliff? Well, if I have a parachute, then I can jump, maybe that'll work. But in our minds, we let these limits really take over. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing for me is breaking through those limiting beliefs, getting past the you versus you, and kind of overcoming self-doubt. Sure. And I just was wondering, it sounds like you ask yourself a lot of questions. Through this interview, you've kind of said, I asked myself, how did I spend that time? And I've asked myself, what can I do to make a bigger impact? I'm just wondering what you say to yourself when you experience some self-doubt. If you're concerned about, like, do I have the ability to do this? What do you say to yourself?
So great question. And, I definitely think that it's important to reflect. I think it's important to really think through, again, what are you good at? What are you not good at? What are you capable of doing? What are you not capable of doing? So in terms of self-doubt, I have tremendous confidence in my ability to do certain things, and I have deep doubt in my ability to do other things. And a lot of my doubts to do other things are backed up by empirical evidence. I highly doubt I could dunk a basketball.
Never say never. Okay.
Well, I mean, anytime I've tried, I've probably fallen about 2.5 feet short.
Okay. So maybe you need to train for a couple decades.
I highly doubt I could throw a football 100 yards. So there are a lot of things that I highly doubt I can do, and I think that it's important to really get to know what it is you're good at and to understand what it is that you really can't do well. And part of it is not to kind of beat a dead horse, but I do think that we're all capable of doing things that go beyond what we necessarily think we're capable of doing. So I'll give you an example. Let's take the topic of writing. There might be someone in the office who is not a very good writer, and that's not their skill. Well, that isn't to say that they can't become a good writer. That isn't to say that they can't write something compelling, that if they really dedicated themselves to it and focused on it and, really put in the hard work, that they could write something really, really good. But the question becomes, at what cost? What's the opportunity cost to taking someone who's not really good at something and making this major investment in time and energy and focus into becoming okay or decent or mediocre or pretty good at something? Instead, I would rather identify what it is that you're really, really good at, what it is that everyone on my team is really, really good at. What do people enjoy doing? If someone really, really loves interacting with people and is good with people and is great on the phone and everyone loves them and they're magnetic and they have this great personality and they're really, I want that person interacting with people. I want them in sales. I want them in customer service. I want them on the front lines. I don't want to turn them into an accountant. So that isn't to say that this person can't do accounting if they really applied themselves, but why?
I agree. It's interesting. I can't remember who said it, but just kind of about focusing on your strengths. Some people say, focus on your weaknesses and build those up. And there's this kind of like reverse school of thought where it's like,
I totally disagree with that.
Yeah. Instead, take what you're good at and get great at it. Get exceptional.
100%.
Be the best at that one thing, because then you'll be able to kind of build, as you said, a team around you.
Yeah. I'm a very big believer in Gladwell's 10,000 hour rule.
Yeah.
Huge believer in that. And you spend 10,000 hours doing anything, you're going to be really good at it. You spend 10,000 hours doing something that you're really good at, you're going to be great at it. So
I love that the book, is it The Tipping Point is when
that was his first book.
Introduces the 10,000 hour rule.
10,000 hour rules is Outliers.
Outliers. Yeah. Oh, that's right.
The Tipping Point is a great book. I love The Tipping Point.
I read all of them and I kind of forgot which one it is, but Outliers, you're right. And it blew my mind how the 10,000 hour rule worked for the Beatles, which they were just
in Hamburg.
Yeah. They were like 12, 16 hour days for a year. And then nobody wanted to listen to them and they were playing for free and one of the greatest bands ever.
I didn't know that story until I read it in Outliers, the story of the Beatles in Hamburg, but that's just another great example of how the Beatles became the Beatles and just putting in the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a big part about entrepreneurship is putting the energy, focus, and time relentlessly day in, day out. Kind of like what you've done. I mean, you started this in 2012, so obviously you're well on your way to the 10,000 plus hours, which is awesome. So it's been fantastic learning from you. Thank you so much. I wanted to let you share where we can find you online or connect with you, LinkedIn or Facebook. What do you got?
Yeah. So my social media is pretty easy to find. It's my name, Adam Mendler. So you can find me pretty much everywhere just by putting in Adam Mendler. I'm Adam Mendler on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. It's me. Awesome.
So last question is, you've achieved quite a bit of success with these businesses. What is your next level of success?
Wow, that's a great question. I have the answer, but it's to be determined. It's not to be determined. It's coming soon. Coming soon. Maybe on the next podcast we'll talk about it.
All right.
I've got something up my sleeve. So,
can you tell us anything about what the overall view of it is? Overall vision?
Sure. So I'll talk a little bit.
Like a vague hints of what's to come?
I'll talk a little bit about I'm actually working on a book right now, which I'm really excited about.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's a book on leadership. So that was kind of why I teased out a little bit. If you want to talk about leadership, we could do a whole nother podcast on it because I have a lot to say on the topic. So I'm working on a book right now that will probably get released sometime early next year. I don't know how long it takes these books to get released, but I've been working on it and am working on it, and it's on the topic of leadership, and it's on a style of leadership that I think doesn't get talked about enough. And even though it doesn't get talked about enough, is the style of leadership that should be commonplace among all organizations in the workplace today and tomorrow, and is only going to be more and more important as millennials and Generation Z become an increasing share of the workforce.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. Premature congratulations, but that's, teasing it out a little bit. Hopefully some exciting things to come.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to say, Adam, thank you so much for coming on Unleash Success.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
If you guys enjoyed the show and learned something of value, the one ask that we have is please go subscribe. If you'd like to leave us a 5-star rating and review, that definitely helps us get our message out there. Because each week I'm going to interview amazing people, and I want to be able to give you more and more tools and strategies that get you real results. Feel free to connect with me on Facebook or Instagram at Corey Corpodian, or just visit the website at unleashsuccess.com. Remember, knowing is not enough. Knowledge alone is not power. Action is. Because action is the only way to get the results you want in life and truly live the life of your dreams. So go take some action. Subscribe to the podcast and get ready to unleash success in you.